I hadn't even had the drink. But the thought that, yeah, you're going to have a drink, okay, I'll make that thought real. Oh, I feel better now. I feel great because all that anxiety and all that gone. So it's the thoughts constantly flowing through, and then you realise that you're the thinker of those thoughts. You take those. They're all neutral. They're all lies. They're all untrue until you bring them in and make them true. You act on them, and it was like something. It was like something happens, and then it would be excuse my spelling and handwriting. Something happens, emotion, action, outcome. So something happens, get the emotion, you react, outcome. React was missing off there, wasn't it? But what happens in all of this right here? Thought. Something happens, we have a thought before any emotion. Now, thought and emotion are hand in hand, they're like shadows, because you experience it and it seems impossible to separate them. But you have a thought before you react, before that emotion. And it's that bit that allows you to change the outcome.
It's your choice and free will.
Yeah, it's your choice and free will. It's somebody shouts at you, somebody swears at you, you get that emotion. Who that think you're talking to? Prior to that emotion is your thoughts. Is your thoughts about that situation. And understanding that, knowing that it's all thought, and if you choose, how you choose to react and act on those thoughts, that's your choice, that's your free will.
We don't choose our thinking in the moment. It's more like we are being thought. We can't, the thoughts that end up in our head, we can't choose what we think. Thoughts are just, they come from, if you go back to mind, thought and consciousness, if we, I'll do the cinema analogy because that's a really good one, isn't it? Do you want to do that in the projector?
No,
the way that our life works, the way that life happens, the way that we get the experience we get, and every single human being works in this way. There is nobody that doesn't get their experience this way. We are all in this in exactly the same way. And it's bringing us back together to see where we are the same that solves problems. So every single person gets their experience via mind, thought and consciousness. So if we use the analogy of cinema, like in the time when I was young and I used to go to the cinema, there would be a projection box, then there would be the seats where we would all sit, and then there would be the screen out there. And if you imagine mind would be like the electricity or whatever it was that was powering up the projector. So if you didn't have some power coming into your projector, there would be no film on the screen. So we need mind, we need this electricity, we need this power, whatever it is. And it's the same way in life, we are all being powered up, we are all animated, we have some form of power going through us. So without that power, no experience of life. And then we have thought. Now in our film, in our cinema analogy, the thought would be like the film reel that's going on. So we've got our projector, it's plugged into the electricity, then we put a film in our projector. So even with electric and a film, there still wouldn't be anything on the screen, because we need the third thing, we need consciousness. And consciousness, in our projector analogy, consciousness is the light. So when we switch our projector on and the light shines through the film, it projects it out in front of us. So if you imagine we're sitting in the cinema, so it appears as if life is happening out there. It appears that everything to do with this film is happening out there. But if you actually stop and look, it's not. All the good stuff, everything that's creating this, everything that's doing this is actually happening in the projection box. Because if we wanted to change our film, if we walked up and went to the screen and tried to change something on the screen, that wouldn't have any effect. The film would just continue playing. We're trying to change it in the wrong place. And that is largely what we do as human beings. We try to change our experience out here in something that's already been created. And we get extremely mesmerised by, like if you go into the cinema, the whole point of the cinema is that you watch the film. And life is like that. It mesmerises us. It has us caught out here. Now, if we remember that all of this is being created back there in the projection box, and that is, I know a lot of people have heard me say, look in the opposite direction, because the direction we are very, very tempted to look at is this out here. Where the magic is, where Lee's magic happens, is remembering that there's a projection box, remembering this is all being created via mind, thought and consciousness. And when we realise that's exactly the same, that's what's going on for everybody else as well. We're not the only ones in that position. Everybody is getting it. That is what we are all up against. That thought creates our reality. It comes through us, like as if we're the projector. It comes through us. Life does not happen to us. Life happens through us. So if we are not there, if we are not part of this equation, we actually make life what it is. Without us in that equation, life would not be what it is. We are part of it. We are actively part of it. So if we begin to understand that is how our experience is created, and whatever film, whatever thoughts are playing out in our mind, if we don't understand and we just take thought to be a reality, then we get into trouble. It's like we're watching a film. It's like if you were watching a film and somebody's house was burning down. If you believed that was a reality, you would have to call the fire brigade. Now, none of us go to the cinema and watch a fire on the screen and go out and call the fire brigade because we know it isn't real. And it's the same thing. When we get caught in our thinking, it looks extremely real to us. We forget that there's the projection box. We forget that is what is creating our experience moment to moment. And as we begin to understand that, and as we begin to see that, a byproduct, there's nothing we have to do, but a byproduct of understanding that, in the same way, a byproduct of understanding how the cinema works is you don't call the fire brigade. A byproduct of understanding how we work is you don't overreact to things that are going on in your life. You just understand, you see what's happening. And it slows down. When Lee was giving that analogy earlier and saying this is how it happens, this is what happens to us, when we don't understand this, our thoughts go really quickly a lot of the time. I mean, what was it you said, how many thoughts?
50 to 70,000.
And they just come through us really, really quickly. And an awful lot of people, there's a lot of talk about meditation and mindfulness. And the reason that we know that meditation and mindfulness are good for us is because the only reason anyone would meditate or get mindful would be to slow their mind down. And a byproduct of this understanding is our mind slows down naturally. There's nothing we do, our mind slows down naturally. And as our mind slows down, we have spaces and we hear these other voices that were always there. There was always something saying to you, Lee, it's not a good idea to drink. But when our mind is going so fast, when things are happening so quickly and it's so loud in our mind, we don't hear that. When we begin to understand, a byproduct of understanding is our mind, our thinking naturally slows down. And as it slows down, there are spaces, there are gaps, there are times to think and to see other possibilities in life. And The only way any human being has ever gotten over anything or anything has ever changed in anybody's life is that they have thought about it, they have had a different thought about it, they've had a new thought about it. So anytime, if something bad has ever happened to you in your life and then you're not still in that place and you're not still caught up in that, it is because we say that time heals. It's not time that heals, it is new thought that heals. And new thought is always available to us. New thought isn't something, because we are being thought, because this is always going on for us, every single thought that you can ever have is always available to you. It's never not available. Now that's not to say that you have to be happy all the time, and if somebody you love has an accident, something like that, you just have to sing in the streets and you don't care. It's not that. But it might. But it's recognising that there is that right?
No.
What time is it?
22.
Oh, right, that's it.
Oh no, it's having
Oh,
to
it's
access it in there.
Sorry?
It's having a party to access that point in there. No, I see what you mean about, yeah, sorry.
And accessing it and understanding it isn't something that you have to do. Again, this is one of those strange things. It is just look to understand, because a byproduct of understanding, like I have got nothing against meditation, meditation is fine, but meditation is something that we do, and often when you talk to people who meditate, while they're in meditation it's all great, it's all good, they're in this calm place, that's fine and everything. Then they go back into their normal life, and it's like these things are two separate things. When we begin to understand those two things are not separate, you begin to live in a meditative state. You begin to be out in the world and your mind is going slower. And when your mind goes slower, it's not a bad thing, it is a good thing. It is a hugely good thing. When your mind slows down, we begin to see more clearly, we begin to see what is, because every single one of us, when we talk about being human and being spiritual, every single one of us, it's like our foundation is our spiritual being. We have this absolutely rock solid, unchanging foundation of being the spiritual essence of this universe. And every one of us has got that as a rock solid foundation. There is no human being that hasn't got that, and nobody is less spiritual than anybody in this room. No person who is on drugs or alcohol, no person who's in a terrible relationship, no person who appears to be the most horrific person, they are no less spiritual, they have no less of this foundation than anybody. And then we have our humanness, which is kind of our thinking and all this going on top. And we get lost here and we forget that we have this foundation. And just remembering and realising that that is there, because our humanness, this world, everything that we see here that is thought created is, it's not permanent. Being a human is not permanent. This world is not permanent. Everything that happens comes and goes, weather comes and goes, we come and go, cars come and go, things come and go, people come and go, none of that is permanent. This thing that's underneath it, this essence, this spiritual essence that we are, is permanent. And we crave the feeling of that permanence. We crave knowing that. We want, as human beings, when we want to control, the reason we want to control is because we want things to be this way. We don't want it to change. We want it to be like this. It's kind of a craving that we have. But within our humanness, we can't satisfy that craving because it's not there. But as we connect to this deeper part of ourselves, as we connect to this, then we feel that permanence. We feel that foundation, we're standing on firm ground. And then in real life situations like the stuff that Lee talked about today, the stuff that he talked about with Helen, when I parent my children, when I'm driving my car and a driver cuts me up, in real life situations where rubber really hits the road, there we are, and that is where this understanding comes into its own, because you can be in the world knowing that you have this foundation. And it is the feeling, all we are is love, peace and wisdom with the power to create the illusion that we're not. All we are is this amazing spiritual essence that created this entire universe. with the capacity as human beings to create the illusion that we're not and believe that illusion. And when we create that illusion via thought, via mind, thought and consciousness, when we create that illusion and buy into it and believe it, we become insecure and we become needy. And when we become insecure and we become needy, we drink or we take drugs or we damage ourselves in some way or we blame other people or we don't do well. Whatever your flavour of what it is you did, it's these feelings of being insecure and believing that we need somebody else to be whole and complete, or we need something, or there's something that we lack. There is some feeling that we lack something. As we begin to feel this foundation and play with it and test it and begin to know that it's there, we stop feeling any kind of lack in the moment, in real time. And when we begin to just feel safe and feel secure and know that we don't need Helen to do anything for us to be complete and whole, it kind of makes room for the most amazing relationships. Because if you don't need somebody to be something, you can just love them unconditionally. And weirdly, what happens when you love somebody unconditionally, those relationships are amazing relationships. When you love somebody with lots of conditions and when you feel that somebody needs to do something, that is the definition of an abusive relationship. Talk to someone who knows. It's not a great place to be when two needy, insecure people, or even more than that in families, but feeling this and knowing this for yourself, you can just go out into the world, you can play out, you can just live life and love it and do things and do what you want and do what you love to do, day to day, moment to moment, and you become a better friend, a better parent, a better person at work, whatever it is you do, whatever it is you're up to in the world. If you can truly get a feel for this foundation that is beneath you, you're standing on something rock solid that is unchangeable. Whereas our humanity and this part of us will come and go. But we feel that permanence and we resonate with that, and it lifts our hearts and enables us to do great things.
I want some of that, please. I'll be happy when I get that. That's all I want.
You got it.
You've already got it,
Got
right?
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm needy. I relate to that. I was needy. And I'm talking now to realise that. Yeah.
Has anyone got any questions before we kind of start to pack up before the library man comes and shoots me? Which is all fine. Yeah.
Can I just ask you, Lee, when you had a realisation, did you say when you were at the retreat with Deborah, did it come very quickly? Was it within 5 minutes, within an hour? Was it like did you go from here to here, or were you trickling into the realisation? Do you think you got there slowly, or you had a profound moment, something just went?
I think you up to that point, my thoughts were, I'm not getting it. I'm not, and there was conversations about there is no it to get, but you feel there's an it to get, and where's my realisation? And it was like it was like I took lots of small steps without realising it, without knowing that. And at that point, the Sunday morning, we was having this conversation, and I think you'd spoke about it, chasing it, and the dog chasing its tail, and it was always a bite away, this it, but if you just stop and let it happen, and that went on to the unconditional love, and I think it was me, Gemma and Amanda.
Yeah.
It was like a little chain reaction of and it was my thoughts and my realisation that I am a beautiful man, I am a loving, caring man. all that, hang on a minute, Lee, you actually love yourself. You know, you're a good person here. You don't need things. You just need you, because what you've got is enough, and you're wonderful. And I burst into tears, and Gemma did, and this lady Amanda, who was adamant she weren't into the love yourself, you know, it's a hippie thing tag, and she was in the same room, and it kind of like went boom to me. I'm okay, I'm enough. And Gemma, you know what? Yeah, I feel, I understand that I'm enough. And this Amanda, she just started to cry, and she said, you know what? I love myself. I think I'm enough. And that was it. That was it. A lot surrounds that. A lot opens up when you realise that you're enough. You don't need things. You don't need to control what you've got, that you're okay, and that you don't need to beat yourself up about this or that. You don't need to take things to feel good. You've already got it. You've already got it. And that changed my life, because for 30 odd years of conditioning and life and friends, family, mates, and what goes on in the world led me to think differently. And it's right there all the time. It was right there. How I wish I could go back if I'd have known this as a young man, my God. But my journey is to this point, and at that point it changed my life. It's immense magic.
He looked visibly different. There was a moment and he looked visibly different.
I could see it on the Monday when he came home from the front. I think I saw you on the Thursday before you went. Different person on the Monday. Completely different.
So it clicked. But we can then create the illusion again. We can kind of go into this place. I've lost it. Because our thinking will then create the illusion again that we haven't got it. And that's what we are. All we are is this foundation, this solidness, this peace, this love, whatever word works for you. That is what we are, with the ability to create the illusion that we're not and fall for that illusion. And that's what we do continually. And once we can kind of see that, and once we know that, in the same way that we can go to the cinema and watch any film, we can watch a horror movie, we can watch a comedy, we can watch, anything can happen, and we know we're okay because we're just sitting in the cinema. And when we know that we're just creating this illusion, we are okay because we are this foundation. We can just because life does not stop being life. You don't kind of get this understanding and never have anything happen in your life again. It's not like life just stops. It's not like your kids just suddenly don't break their feet on a Monday. You just deal with it as life comes at you, and those situations are going to come at you regardless, whatever it is, because that's life. You just deal with it. You're better equipped to deal with it, and to not let it affect you in ways that it did before, because you understand what it if that's going to happen anyway, you have the choice. You have the choice to be upset by that in the moment or not.
Is that, you don't mind me asking this, is that like a situation that will arise and you can either look at it as a positive or a negative way? The same objection or problem will come, so it's better to look at it in a positive way. Are you with me? I'm not saying that coming in.
It's not exactly.
Sorry to ask this, I'm new
No,
at
no, no,
this.
no, it's great, ask questions. It's not exactly that, because there's something deeper at work here. It kind of says there is no good situation or bad situation. Everything is neutral. and then we decide whether it's not that there are things that are bad and then we have to deal with them differently. It's that we begin to see there are just things,
Right.
and we are the ones that have decided that is bad.
Right, I'm with you.
So it's a slightly different to this is bad, and then I need to see it differently so that I can see it's good. It's this is neutral, and then I'm looking at it, and it's my looking at it that has decided that it's bad.
Right. Yeah, that's a totally different way of looking at that then, isn't it?
It's your
Right,
thoughts.
okay.
It's your thoughts.
Just a quick one.
Yeah, has to be quick because we've got to go in a minute.
Yeah.
We're going to get into
Did
trouble.
you, did you lose your circle of friends who you went out drinking with? Or
Yeah.
Jared?
But it's
I've-
okay
I've-
because it's got me now.
I've gone from the more and more